If you just joined us, a warm welcome to our SABC News viewers as well as SABC 2 viewers. We're celebrating Heritage Day 2019 under the theme Celebrating South Africa's Literacy Classics in the Year of Indigenous Languages. Now, the national celebrations are taking place in Upington in the Northern Cape, as where President Cyril Ramaphosa is addressing the nation.
The Premier of the Northern Cape, Dr. Zamani Saul, Deputy Minister Mafu, the Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture and Sports, Deputy Minister Alvain Botes, who's here with us, Deputy Minister Kapa, who's also here with us, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Sylvia Lucas, Saidra Abaya Moiduk vandag. MECs of our province here in the Northern Cape, our executive mayors and councillors of our municipalities, traditional leaders and religious leaders who are with us, Professor Petika Ntuli, who just spoke to us in a very poetic way, and we thank you for being here. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, goeiemiddag, dumelang, molweni, Nkai Oab, Sanbonan, Dimasiari, Intlekan. I'd like to extend my greetings to all the people of our country on this very important day of our heritage. But most of all, I'd like to extend my greetings to the people of the Northern Cape. It is wonderful to be here in the Northern Cape. De premier het gesê, president, die weer is baie mooi en lekker hier op die noordelikste Kaap, and said, very good, I'm happy to be here. Fellow South Africans, on this day we celebrate our many cultures, traditions and languages. This is a day when we rejoice about who we are as South Africans. This is a day when we look at ourselves as South Africans and look at how beautiful we are. And all of you are so beautiful, dressed in your traditional colors. I am also beautiful today. So today we celebrate our South Africanness. We celebrate our identity. We celebrate where we have come from, and we also celebrate who we are as a people. We also celebrate our greatest legacy of all. That is our freedom. We celebrate the fact that we are a free people. We achieved our freedom 25 years ago when millions of South Africans stood in queues around the country to vote for the first time. Their actions on the 27th of April in 1994, helped to give birth to a new country, to a new South Africa rooted in equality, non-sexism, non-racialism, respect for human rights, and tolerance of our differences. The young men and the young women of South Africa today are the ones who are inheriting and who have inherited this political heritage. May you always remember the sacrifices that were made so that we could live in freedom, and never forget that it is the duty of all of us to guard and to protect this freedom and to ensure that this freedom that we have achieved is passed on to future generations. May you also wear with pride the honor that comes with being a South African. And sometimes we never pause to think what this gift that we've got of being a South African is. It is an important gift just to be a South African and to know that you belong and your identity is that of being a South African. It is always a privilege to visit this beautiful province, a province that is home to 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. You must always remember that the United Nations has recognized the Northern Cape and has said that we have these 2 very important heritage sites in the Northern Cape. These sites were once home to ancient populations, the ancestors of the entire human race. In other words, you live in a very old province. This is not a new province. It has existed for generations and generations. If you want to know, for millions of years. This is your home, this Northern Cape. Now, what do we have in the Northern Cape? We have the beautiful and remote expanses of the Richtersveld Transfrontier Park, which has become an international tourist attraction. People travel from all over the world to come to the Richtersveld to come and see this World Heritage Site for themselves. Our pride in this gem is all the greater because it was this government that restored the land to its historical owners and inhabitants in 2007, after it had been forcefully taken away from them nearly 100 years ago. Richtersveld has now been restored to its original owners, and we thank our government for that. There are also the red dunes of the Komani cultural landscape, where we find unique as well as well-preserved rock art that teaches us about a way of life that existed hundreds of thousands of years ago. These sites serve to remind us that cultural heritage is key to our very survival as a people. We pay tribute to all South Africans, young and old, who have kept our rich and diverse cultural and linguistic traditions alive. And we thank people like Professor Pitika Ntuli, who, as we heard him speak here, is so proficient in so many of our languages and promotes the speaking of our languages all in totality. We thank you for that. But we also thank another great resident of the Northern Cape. Just 2 months ago, we celebrated the 98th birthday of a great resident of this province, Ubaba Ukredo Vusamazulu Mutwa. We are fortunate to still have amongst us great champions of heritage preservation and who have dedicated their lives to fighting ignorance of African customs. We wish Ubaba Ukredo well and pray that we will continue to enjoy the benefits of his wisdom and his knowledge. This morning, at the opening of the Sandile Present Community Library, I also had the privilege of meeting with Umama Katrina Esau. Now, for many years now, Mama Katrina has been teaching the endangered Ngu language to people of the Rosedale community from a school in front of her home. She told me this morning that she's even moving with the times and wants to make educational CDs and DVDs so that everyone can learn this language, even me. Now, she gave me this book. She has written this book. Now, this book is written in the Ngu language, and I started taking lessons from her. She started teaching me the Ngu language, and we both agreed that I will have to come and stay with her for a month so that I can learn the Ngu language. Now, we also spent some time talking. I asked her, "How old are you, Oma?" And she said, "Nee, ek wil jou nie vertel nie." It was only when I told her that jy lyk baie mooi, man, that she told me that she's 86 years old. En toe vertel ek haar dat jy's baie mooi en jy's baie jong ook. And then she smiled. So that got me a smile, and I want to honor her for preserving the Ngu language and even reducing it into writing. And she's now started teaching a number of young men and women the Ngu language, which means that it is going to be preserved. I also had an occasion to also speak to some of the people she was with. One spoke to me in the Nama language, and I'm very pleased that we're already teaching the Nama language in our schools. Language is the great transmission line that binds us to our forebears, to our ancestors. As we heard Professor Ntuli saying here, language really is the identity. It actually speaks to your identity as a person, as a South African, because it helps us to understand where we have come from and anchors us and our children in the present. The United Nations has declared 2019 to be the year of indigenous languages, and this year, Heritage Month, is focused on elevating all our languages and to see that they are more widely spoken and read. There is no language in this country that is superior to another. When we were negotiating the Constitution, when we were finalizing our journey into democracy, language became one of the most important issues that we had to deal with. And in fact, it almost emerged as a deal breaker where the whole negotiation process almost collapsed, because those who had power in those days, they only wanted 2 languages to be recognized. And when we asked them, we said, which are those 2 languages? They said English and Afrikaans. And then we asked, what about the other languages? The other languages that our people speak, languages that had been relegated to the back, languages that they did not even want to see existing. And these discussions almost led us to a break point, because we said we cannot move into a new dispensation with only 2 languages recognized and the other languages not recognized. It took us quite a long time talking, and then they said, okay, we will do a compromise. We will recognize 4 languages. And when we asked, we said, which are those languages? They said English, Afrikaans, Zulu, and Sotho. And we said, but what about the other languages? As we continued talking, that is when we finally all realized that we've got to give recognition to the 11 languages that are mostly spoken in our country. That is how finally we said all the languages will become official languages. So in the end, we've decided that there is no language in this country that will be superior to any language. All languages must be recognized in the same way. And we said we need to ensure that our people's identities are preserved, because language defines your identity. And it is when we recognize our languages that we are able to affirm our identities as a people, and that is why when we are able to also give meaning to what is set out in our Constitution about our diversity and the beauty of the diverse nation that we are, a nation that speaks various languages, a nation that has different cultures, a nation that has different traditions, but also a nation that in the end not only recognizes but embraces and celebrates our culture, our origins, our history, and sees beauty in every language that is spoken. And when I spoke to Oma Katrina, I said, oh, but the Ngu language is so beautiful. And she said to me, as she grew up, as she was growing up, because she spoke the Ngu language at home, as people outside her household heard her talking the Ngu language, to say that as a baya leleke taal. And today I told her that listening to you, Oma, the Ngu language is the mooiste taal in the land. Baya mooi taal. So there is therefore no language we can say belongs to the past and must stay there. We cannot say the Nama language belongs to the past or the Ngu language belongs to the past and it must forever remain there. Daar is geen taal in ons land wat ons kan sê is 'n taal uit ons verlede en wat ons verlede gelaat moet word nie. Vandag omhels en beoefen ons alle tale wat bydra tot die diversiteit van ons nasie. Every single language spoken in this country has equal value and it has equal worth, and today we are saying we must embrace every language and we must see beauty in every language, and I would encourage all of us to learn another language. Ons moet probeer om ander tale te leer. ka hobane puo e nngwe le nngwe ya naha ya rona o ka se ke wa re ke puo e sele kapo ke puo e sa tshwanelang hore buiwe ke batho ba bang. Dipuo kaofela tsa rona re tshwanetse re di amogele, re leke go ithuta tsona, re bue puo tsa batho ba rona. Because under colonialism and apartheid, African languages were degraded, they were also denigrated, and today I heard this very clearly from Oma Katrina, because she said, they said the new language is a Liele Ketao. And today we must be able to say that the languages of the Khoi and the San people are languages that are beautiful and languages that we must also embrace. In the past, this was a deliberate attempt to alienate our communities, to divide our communities, and also to ensure that we forget about our history, our culture, and our traditions. Now, this government is doing everything within its means to promote and to preserve all our languages, but most especially the languages of the people of the Northern Cape. Languages that are dying out, like the Ngu language, like the Namba language, like the Kwe language, and we want those languages not to die. We want them to continue being spoken and to live on. We are working very hard to restore the collective pride of our people. The Northern Cape is home to the only radio station in the entire world that broadcasts in the indigenous languages of the San community. That is true. And you must remember that the Khoi and the San languages are the oldest languages that are spoken possibly in the whole world. So these are the original languages of humanity. And we are privileged in South Africa that we still have a number of people who speak these languages, and it is therefore our collective and our national duty to preserve these languages, to protect them, to expand them, and to make sure that they are spoken and they are taught. Now, this radio station, XKFM, is so successful. I'm told that broadcasters from Namibia recently visited to come and do what? To get training on how to start a radio station for their own indigenous communities back home. Now, the Northern Cape does not only export minerals and grapes and agricultural products and so forth. It does not only export people like Alvain Botes and Sylvia Lucas to Cape Town, it also exports training and knowledge. Now people are coming here to the Northern Cape to come and get training. So you are a great province, you are exporting a whole lot of other things. But we will not export your premier, he will stay here. It is also here in the Northern Cape that the Nama language is being taught in primary schools for the first time. Now we are very proud about that the Nama language is being taught in our primary schools. Next year, 5 students from this province will be trained as Nama educators at the University of Namibia. That is real progress. I want to congratulate the government of the Northern Cape for these significant achievements. We are going to move step by step and step by step forward. Oma Katrina then spoke to me and the Premier and said she would like us to help her to spread the Ngqu language. And we have committed that we are going to help her to spread the Ngqu language here in the Northern Cape. Now, around the country, there are efforts underway to promote indigenous languages and multilingualism through the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities, as well as the Pan-South African Language Board. We are working with our institutions of higher learning to develop lexicography and terminology development units and offer bursary schemes to students who want to major in a number of African languages. We are actively working to make sure African languages are offered in all our schools. Osikwenzayo kwamanje sifuna ukuthi izilimi ezikhulunywa la eMzansi Afrika sikwazi ukuthi zifundiswe nasezikolweni zethu. Abantwana bethu bakwazi ukuthi bangangena esikolweni bayofunda izilimi zabo zasemakhaya. Over the past few years, we have reduced the number of public schools that do not teach African languages from 2,500 to just over 460. By the end of next year, we are aiming to ensure that all South African schools, we've got 23,000 public schools. We want all our 23,000 schools to offer an African language where our children can learn our languages. Now, our parliament has also been asked to elevate sign language to the status of official language. My neighbor here, who is speaking in sign language, we want this language that he is translating into, they have asked us that we should make it an official language. So this, colleagues, we are now on the move. We are now on the move to ensure that we protect our languages, we extend the utilization of various languages. This morning, as I was saying, we went to the library, and when we were in the library, I saw firsthand the eagerness of young people, of learners, to read to me in the Ngqu and Nama language in the community library. Now, as part of Heritage Month, we are promoting a greater culture of reading and of appreciation of literary texts in indigenous languages. More than 500,000 copies of classical texts in indigenous languages have been distributed to various public libraries, to school libraries, resource centers, and university libraries as part of the reprint of South African classic programs. I want to encourage all South Africans to visit their public libraries and to pick up a book in an indigenous language. Now, I was very, very pleased to hear the Premier telling me that here in the Northern Cape, you've got 226 libraries. That I found most impressive. And that the one that we opened this morning is the biggest library, and it is beautiful. And I encourage the people of Upington to visit the library there. So I also call on the commercial publishing industry to support the publication of more works in indigenous languages. Maleme a rona a buiwe ke batho ba bantsi. Batho ba rena ba ye mo di library ba ile ithuta maleme a rona. O tsene mo library o ile batla buka ya setso e ngwetsweng ka Setswana. O ile batla buka e ngwetsweng ka Sethosa. O ile batla buka e ngwetsweng ka Sevenda. o dule hatsi o ipale o utlwe bomonate bo ba leleme la rona ka hobane di teng dibuka tse bjalo. Now, the government's Indigenous Language Publishing Program that funds all our books is going to be upping its game. Government also supports national literary events, book fairs, and book festivals. Right here in the Northern Cape, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture supports the annual Writers' Festival. Through these efforts, we hope to see all Indigenous languages occupying their rightful place in our society. Soon we will be reading novels and textbooks in the Indigenous languages of the Northern Cape. We will soon be seeing TV shows and listening to radio dramas in Nama, in the Ngu language and in many other languages. Di tloga di tshwana le bona bao bo generations o ka ipona ge o bone generations ka the Ngu language go tla ba ntho e monate tota. Now I want to issue a challenge to also our musically gifted young people here in the Northern Cape. We want to hear them excelling in the number of music arts. For le bona ba tshwane le bo Show Majosi, bo King Manoda, ba tshwane Manada, ba Northern Cape, ba tshwane le bona. Music is one of the best ways to elevate the Indigenous language. We want to download your music onto our phones. We want to watch your music on videos on MTV. Le natota ke batlo mamela music wa lona wa mo Northern Cape ka mo phoning yaka. Now, heritage is not only about cultural preservation. It is a key driver of national development. It was Ubaba Credo who once said, "I believe that a truly democratic country is a country that uses the spiritual talents and the heritage of its people to feed the hungry and clothe the naked," close quotes. Professor Pitika Ntuli expresses himself not only in language, but also in art, in working with wood, stones, and even hard stones, and creating the most beautiful artifacts. And that too is a cultural expression. That too is what also preserves our identity and speaks to who we are. Our ancestors survived life in this extreme desert landscape because of their knowledge of the land, their ability to find and conserve water, their understanding of animals, their understanding of the soil of this place, their understanding of the rocks of this place, as well as their vast knowledge of traditional plants and medicine. Indigenous knowledge, too, is part of our heritage. And this government is committed to ensuring that its use also benefits our communities. We want to see more of our communities supported and trained so that they are able to use their knowledge. They are able to also use the application of these traditional methods to start and operate their own small businesses. We have successful examples of this in community-owned lodges in the Kalahari Transfrontier Park. We are actively working with the communities to broaden access to the biodiversity economy and to ensure access and benefit sharing between communities as well as some of the companies that operate here. This is particularly important in the midst of our unemployment crisis. Around the world, young people are being brought into the heritage space so that they can serve as cultural ambassadors, to work as tour guides and operators, and to start their own businesses in promoting and preserving our heritage. There are millions of young people around the country who do not get admitted to institutions of higher learning and are unable to access training for whatever reasons. I want to call on community cultural organizations and those custodians of our cultural heritage to teach and train our young people. Our traditional leaders can play a very important role in all this, and our traditional healers can also play a very important role in bringing young people into this area of work. There must be greater partnerships between our communities as led by our traditional leaders, our traditional healers, and youth organizations around cultural heritage. And this can be done through bringing in young people into what we would call cultural camps and retreats, where young people are taught our heritage, our history, our traditions, our cultures, so that they can best appreciate the languages of our country, where they can also be taught tolerance, understanding, and being able to enjoy the diversity that South Africa is all about. We must look at the ways in which the National Youth Service can be harnessed, possibly by incorporating a cultural heritage component as part of its training of young people. It is the greatest tragedy that our elders often pass away without handing on their knowledge of our customs and traditions. And this is where I applaud Oma Katrina Esau, that even at 86, she is still prepared to embark on projects that are going to pass on not only the Ngu language, but also the culture, the traditions onto young people. And I'm glad that she has embraced young people who she's passing on all this to them. I call upon our young people, and I say to young people in our nation, reach out to the elders in your communities. Go to the elders. Go and ask them about the ways of the past. Go and ask them about the history of your people. Go and engage them at close range about their own knowledge, and let's learn from them. I have found that when you engage young people, old people rather, when you engage them, they come alive. They get excited, because that is when they talk about their past. And I often find that their memory at times is razor sharp. They remember things that happened in the past. So I invite young people, engage older people. What they tell you and what they teach you is of great value. Heritage transmission can also play a role in promoting healthier communities and societies. A return to many of the affirming traditions of the past, such as respect for elders, respect for women and children and their rights, and leading a healthy lifestyle, can solve some of our social ills. The promotion of indigenous languages is part of the broader effort to empower the people of South Africa and restore their dignity. It is part of the work that we must necessarily do to end poverty and to reduce inequality. In the end, this involves the creation of economic opportunities for previously disadvantaged South Africans through employment, skills development, and support for small and medium enterprises. It involves the restoration of the land to the poor, where farming can take place. And we must say it very clearly, our history, our identity as South Africans is closely linked to the question of land. And it is for that reason that we say the land must be returned to our people, because that is what really shapes our identity. Because as a people, we cannot have an identity without the land. The history of our forebears tells us that they were so closely linked with the land. And when the land was taken away from them, it was like their identity and their being was stripped away from them. So our job, our task must be to restore the identity of our people by making sure that we do speak our languages, we do practice our traditions, we observe our cultures, and we return the land to our people as well. But we must also be focusing on how we can pass on the knowledge, the skills, the know-how. It means that we need to invest in our country's human potential by ensuring that we do give our young people access to quality education. We also give our people broadly access to affordable health care and a social security that is comprehensive. Over the past few weeks, South Africa has had to confront acts of violence that have been born out of a frustration and intolerance that has damaged our sense of solidarity and social cohesion. Let us use the events of the past few weeks to affirm that amidst the great diversity of our society, we are united by the values of dignity, respect, and equality. I want to repeat this, that as South Africans, we must always remember that we are a diverse people. We are a people, we are one nation that's made up of people who speak different languages, people who practice different cultures, who have different traditions, but who also have different histories. And as we are diverse, we must uphold that diversity, embrace the fact that hari kopane biana re batho ba le bangwe, hari kopane biana re le batho ba South Africa, ons as dieselfde mense, ons as een nasie. We are one nation, and we must refuse to be divided, and we must always say we will value the dignity and we will always respect one another because we are equal. On that issue, we must never ever turn away from as South Africans, because that is what makes us what we are. Because in the end, there is nothing in any of our traditions, in any of our cultures, that supports that we must take action against one another, that supports that we must be violent to one another, that allows, there is nothing in our makeup as a people that allows the abuse of women and children, that allows men to want to rape young girls and women. There is nothing in our makeup that allows that to happen. So all these things of the killing of women and the raping of children is foreign to our makeup as a nation, and that is why we must get rid of it. There is nothing in our makeup that promotes racism. There's nothing in our makeup that promotes tribalism or any form of intolerance. We must always also remember that we struggled as a people against racism because we recognize racism as an aberration, as something that is strange, evil, and unwanted. And we fought against racism. And it is for that reason that we must also fight against the abuse of women and children, because that does not define who we are. We must mount this struggle. We must similarly mount this struggle to fight against the dislike or hatred for people from other nations, because it is not us. We've always been welcoming. And much as we may have challenges and difficulties of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, those should never make us want to raise our hands against people from other nations. We must deal with those, and as government, we are determined to address the challenges and the frustrations that our people face. It does not mean that we do not recognize those challenges. But we also say those who have come to live here from other countries, we want them to observe the laws of this country. They must also live in our country and observe our laws. We also want them to be people like us. All of us as South Africans, we are documented. Every South African must have a document that shows who they are. We want them also to be documented. That is important for us. We know that regardless of the circumstances of every South African, we all want the same thing. We want a better life for all our people, and our people want a better life for their families and to live in peace and coexistence with others. Now, as we celebrate Heritage Day, let us also celebrate our resilience. Let us step forward and commit to be part of national healing and to use this rich heritage of which we are so proud to grow our economy, to create jobs, and to improve the lives of our people. And let me say that all of us should say, as South Africans, we all have a responsibility to be the true South Africans that we are. True South Africans that are also defined by our Constitution. A Constitution that imposes a responsibility on each one of us. A responsibility that says, yes, I am a South African, I have certain talents, I have certain abilities, and I too have something to offer. There is something that as a South African I can offer to this great nation of our country, the people of our country. And it is in this regard that each one of us must regard ourselves as being actively involved in helping to improve the lives of others. And that is why the Tuma Mina concept must once again reverberate throughout the country, that as men and women of our country, we must all be able to say, yes, send me Tuma Mina, Romana, so that I can heal this nation, I can bring healing to this nation. I must do certain things to ensure that we end the abuse of women and children, so that we end the violence that has been perpetrated against others, so that we spread love, we spread a good feeling amongst all of us as South Africans. It is when we do that that we will be able to heal this nation. This country's freedom was won by the actions of men and women who stood side by side in the heroic struggle against apartheid and colonialism, a struggle which culminated in our historic democratic elections 25 years ago. Now again, and perhaps even more than ever, we need to take certain actions as individuals to determine the future of our country. And today, as we celebrate, today as we recognize this Heritage Month, this Heritage Day, let us be spreading everything that has to do with the heritage of our country, our languages, our cultures. And I didn't talk about food, also our food. Die baie lekker kos van hier in die Noord-Kaap. Die baie lekker kos wat ons eet, because food is also our heritage. It's not only language, it is also the food, it is also our traditions, our culture, the way we dance, the way we sing, the way we do art, the way we do everything, even the way we walk. You can see that there could be culture in the way that some of us walk. You watch me when I walk, it's a cultural expression as well. So today we celebrate. Today we recognize who we are. But in recognizing who we are, we must also say that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to make sure that we do build this South Africa of our dreams, and we do take action against every evil, every ugly act that militates against what makes us a beautiful country and the beautiful people that we are. In the end, I want to say, let us work and walk and do everything side by side to realize this South Africa that we want. All of us want this nation to be a great nation. Let us therefore take action to make our country a great nation, because we live in the most beautiful country in the world. There is no other country that is as beautiful as ours, and there is no nation that is as wonderful as our nation. Ngiyabonga, kyaleboga, baya danki. Thank you very much.
And so there, President Cyril Ramaphosa has just finished giving his speech on this special Heritage Day in Upington in the Northern Cape, just speaking about what a great province that is. That is a very old province where the oldest people in civilization are staying, talking about how the Khoi and the San languages must be preserved and expanded, talking about how language is an identity for all Africans and that it's important to build on them. Of course, he did open a library earlier today that will promote African languages, particularly South African languages. This is where we're going to say goodbye to our SABC2 viewers, but of course we continue here on the SABC News Channel to broadcast the Heritage Show.